Do the Terps have any chance at beating Oregon?
You are Locked On Terps, your daily podcast on the Maryland Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, everyone? I'm Tre Moore, host of Locked On Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So thank you for making us part of your day. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. I'm also doing work at InsideBlackandGold.net, so make sure you guys head over to InsideBlackandGold.net for all your latest Terps news. So Maryland football has this game coming up against Oregon, and do the Terps have any shot of not only upsetting Oregon, but keeping this game relatively close? I have to say, I doubt it. If we're being completely honest with you, I could come on here and lie and be like, Maryland could upset Oregon by doing these things and everything and whatever, and if their offensive line protects, and I could give you all these things that haven't really happened all year and say that's how we beat Oregon. But if we're being realistic, if we're being for real, if I'm saying my honest opinion, I don't see a way we win this game. And I don't think that's some outlandish statement. I think that's a pretty fair take. I don't see a way that the Terps beat Oregon. I just don't. We play the number one team in the country, and they're the number one team in the country for a reason. They're battle tested. They've played some good teams. They've played some good teams now. They've played last week. They just beat Michigan, and I know Michigan's a down year this year, but Michigan's still not a bad team in terms of the grand scheme of things. They're not as good as they were last year, obviously, but they're still a pretty good team. They crushed Illinois when they were in the top 25, 38-9. They beat Purdue 35-0. And then when Oregon played Ohio State, we all know what happened there. Back and forth. Really fun game to watch. If you guys had the opportunity to watch the Ohio State versus Oregon game, really interesting game. Went back and forth. You weren't sure who was going to win that game. It had the ball last, was going to end up winning, but Oregon ends up winning that game by 1 point because Ohio State's quarterback slid too late, and it was a whole big thing in the media and everything, and they beat I think Ohio State was, I want to say Ohio State was like 2 during that time. Was it 2 versus 3 when they played? I forget exactly what Ohio State was ranked, but now Ohio State's ranked 3rd in the country. So they beat the 3rd ranked team in the country. They've beaten some other solid teams, but you don't get tested much more than Ohio State. And when I look at Oregon's team, it's complete. It's a complete football team, all 3 phases. Everywhere on their football team is pretty complete, especially when you compare it to how the Terps are. And so I can sit here and tell you guys that Maryland has a chance to upset Oregon. But if we're being realistic, if we're being real with ourselves, I just don't see it. I just don't see it. I don't know where we could get the production from. I don't know where we're going to get certain things have to happen. Like, I don't see, and they haven't happened all year, so I don't see why we would turn on some switch over at Oregon and to make things, make an upset happen. Now, here's the thing that you can argue. I do think the Terps can make the game somewhat close. And if you make the game somewhat close, I think you walk out of there with a win. And I'm not into those types of wins where you look at it and you say, oh, we kept the game close, so that counts as a win for us. But I think for Maryland, after the season we've had, after where we are, if they're only winning 1 Big Ten game the entire year so far against USC, who's having a really down year. USC is pretty – that win continues to lose value every single week. They're benching their quarterback, Miller Moss, who at one point people thought could win the Heisman, and now they're benching him. So that's something. And so when you look at that one win we got against USC, that win continues to lose value. The stock continues to go down on that. People are going to say, That's not even a cool win this year. And that's the only win we have. And we've shown way too many weaknesses for me to say that we can beat an Oregon team. I don't know. I don't think I would personally say they're the best team in the country. And that's if I'm just being 100% honest. I think they're top 3 or 4 for sure. I know that their resume says they're number 1 right now, and you kind of have to put them number 1. But I mean, like, when it comes down to it, do I think they're the number 1 team in the country? I don't think so. I think there's a couple teams better than them. Even though they beat Ohio State, I still think Ohio State's probably better than them. And I feel like if they played again, I feel like Ohio State would be favored again. And I would think Ohio State would win that game. I think you could argue Georgia potentially is better than them. And there's some other schools. There's a couple others, but I would say they're definitely top 3 or 4. And Maryland's not close to that right now. But I just don't see our weaknesses all of a sudden getting to a point where we can actually win the game. Now, like I was talking about before, keeping the game close. Now, that's something that can easily happen because not easily happen, obviously, but fluke stuff happens in college football. I don't know if you guys have watched college football this year, but there's been some fluke stuff happening. And there's no reason why some of that fluke stuff can't happen in Eugene, Oregon when Maryland plays. It's a really hard sport to predict. Like I watch it every week and I'm like, I don't know what's going on because it's college players. These guys aren't professionals. They make mistakes on and off the field. It's challenging to kind of predict how a lot of these things will go. Like the upsets are a lot more surprising than I would say in the NFL. Like if an NFL upset happens, like it's like, okay, like yeah, the Raiders. Let's say the Raiders beat the Chiefs or something. Like, yeah, that's a big deal, but the Raiders have still some of the best players in the world, and like it's a much more even playing field. But in college football, you would think it's a lot harder to see some of these upsets coming because it's not a level playing field. A lot of these schools like Oregon that were playing this week get all the top guys, so it's a lot more fluky when these things happen, and it's a lot harder to predict. And so I've seen weird wins happen this year, and you can name them. Vandy beating Alabama. There's so many to go to, and it leads me to think, could the Terps force a couple of turnovers and find their way into the game? I think that's one way that Maryland could potentially keep the game close, maybe going into the second half, the third quarter, whatever it may be. I think turnovers is the biggest one. That's usually when you get the most fluky stuff, when somebody grabs a crazy interception or you get a pick six, and then you start getting a couple of these turnovers. Next thing you know, maybe instead of down 21, you're only down 3 points or you're only down 7 points. And then maybe they separate themselves eventually, but you are still able to stay in the game, relatively speaking. So I think that this year in college football, we've seen fluky stuff happen, and I don't know why they can't happen for the Terps. I don't know why they can't get some of that stuff to potentially go on for Maryland football. Now, do I think that'll happen? Probably not. I doubt. I'm doubting that will happen. But crazier things have happened before. I think that you maybe could get a shootout if you have a couple big plays from Billy Edwards or who's ever at quarterback. You never know what can happen. But Maryland actually winning the game, I just don't see it because when you go through our football team, there's too many weaknesses offensively and defensively. Offensively, I don't think our offensive line is good enough to win this game. And that's just me being honest. They haven't been good enough to beat a lot of teams this year, and Oregon's going to get after us. And can they protect Billy or MJ, who's ever at quarterback? I don't think so. And that's going to make it really hard to throw the football. And they also can't run block very well. So it's like, where do you find the offense? And then our secondary has struggled the entire year and has been horrible. One of the worst units probably not only in the Big Ten, but the entire country in all Power 4 football. And we know Oregon's quarterback, Dylan Gabriel, can throw the ball over the place and have some good guys on the outside. And I don't think our other parts of our defense make up for some of that weakness in the secondary. So do I think Maryland can beat Oregon? No. Do I think some fluke stuff can happen and potentially make the game closer than what we expected to? Yeah, I totally think that could happen. Maryland basketball, the guards are going to actually be the key this year to how far the Terps go. I'll explain that as we switch gears. I'll talk to you guys about that after this ad from Hims and FanDuel. Guys, sometimes intimate moments happen spontaneously, and we always want to be ready so we can perform in the bedroom. Hims provides access to treatments that can help you stay hard and last longer and give you that boost in confidence so you can be ready whenever the mood strikes. Hims is changing men's healthcare, providing you with access to affordable sexual health treatment of your own couch. Hims provides access to a range of doctor-trusted ED treatments like chewable Hardmints and Viagra, and their generics for up to 95% cheaper. No insurance is needed, and one low price covers everything from treatments to ongoing care. With hundreds of thousands of trusted subscribers, Hims can help you find the ED option that works for you. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/lockedon. That's HIMS.com/lockedon for your personalized ED treatment options. hims.com/lockedon. The product mentioned are chewable compound products which are not approved by or verified for safety or effectiveness by the FDA. Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook apps gives you everything you need to place your live bets, all in the NFL, all in one place. So when you get the hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-plays, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Make sure you guys go over to FanDuel. This is a really good offer, and there's so many different things you can bet on, whether it's the NBA tonight. Of course, college basketball is back now. The NFL, college football is in full swing. So make sure you guys go over to FanDuel. That's FanDuel.com. Believe it or not, I think the Maryland guards, specifically two guys in particular, are the key to this team. And let me tell you guys how I kind of came to this. I think that two guys in particular, but I'll talk about the guards in general first. The guards are going to be the key to this team because I feel like, in my opinion, and this could be wrong, but I'm here to say what I believe in. I think that Derek Queen and Julian Reese, we have a pretty good idea of what we're going to get from those two. I think it's pretty clear Derek Queen, our team is going to be centered around him. He's going to be our best player. He's going to rebound the ball really well, and he's going to score a lot of points. That's what he showed in his first game. And a lot of you guys might think, yeah, sure, you might think this, but when he gets to harder teams, harder opponents, like when we play Marquette in a couple of weeks, and when we get into Big Ten play and some of these other games, I think that he might slow down a little bit, but I don't think so. I think, he's not going to have 20 and 20 every single game, but I think he'll be our leading scorer, and him or Julian Reese will be our leading rebounder. And I think the same with Julian Reese. I think we know what we're going to get from Julian Reese. He's probably going to give us around 11, 12 a game with about 8 rebounds. I think that's what we're going to get from Julian Reese. He's going to block some shots. I don't think we're going to get much more than that, and I don't think we're going to get much less than that. I think that's what we're going to get from Julian Reese. But I think that the biggest question marks back to Julian Reese real quick, because Julian Reese has been in college for a while now. He's a senior now, and so he's been here. So we've seen what he's going to do. We have a pretty good idea of how he's going to play. Now, the guards, it's a completely different conversation. I don't know how good they are yet. I really don't. And I'm still trying to figure out each one. I'm still trying to figure out who our best three guys are. I'm just trying to figure it out overall. And I think they're the key to our team taking the next step, because I feel like we know we know Derek Queen's gonna be really good. Like I'm pretty sure about that. I think out of everybody on our team, if they said everyone has a horrible year besides one player, I would guess that was Derek Queen had a good year. And then Julian Reese would be next in line. He's been an all Big Ten type of player for a while now. We know what we're going to get from him. The guards, I just don't know. And I think how far we're going to go is going to depend on our guards. It's going to depend on Gillespie. It's going to depend on Rodney. It's going to depend on Deshaun Harris-Smith. It's going to depend on Selton Miguel. It's going to depend on anyone else young, anyone else that gets time for the Terps. It's going to depend on them for us at the guard position, for us to take a step, for us to be a top 25 team, for us to be a March Madness team this year. And I realized that in our first game. First of all, we shot the ball really bad last year. The guards are going to be the one that's shooting the ball most of the time. Like the three-pointers, the long twos, the mid-ranges, where we really struggled last year, that's what the guards are going to be doing. That's what the guards are going to be chucking up. Rodney, Gillespie, all those different guys are going to be chucking up shots, and they're going to be a reason why we can shoot the ball at a high level or we can't shoot the ball at a high level. And so I believe that our guards in particular are going to decide how we shoot the ball from outside, where we really struggled last year. Reese and Queen aren't going to take very many threes. I know Queen took a couple. He might take some, but it's really going to be the guards considering dominating how we shoot the ball, and they're going to make up the percentage where we really struggled last year. They're also going to be the deciding factor whether we're going to be elite or good this year. If Rodney played like he did last game and Jacoby Gillespie plays how good I think he can be, and same with Selton Miguel, and they don't all have to be on at the same time, but if they all have up years and all surpass or meet the expectation that people think, same thing with Deshaun Harris-Smith as well, then the sky's the limit for this Terps team. This Terps team can be really, really, I think, a top 25 team, a top 20 team, a top 4 seed in March Madness, and can do some really special things if the guard plays elite, because we already know we have one of the best front courts in college basketball. I feel pretty confident with that. But if the guards can play at a high level, then Maryland's going to be golden for this year. And I think that we have a chance to be one of the better teams in the Big Ten overall. Let's predict the rest of the football season. What games will the Terps win? What games will the Terps lose? I'll tell you about that. Will it be enough for a bowl game? I'll tell you about that after this ad from ZBiotics and the Game Time app. ZBiotics Pre Alcohol Prohibic is the world's first genetically engineered prohibic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink alcohol, it gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break the byproduct down. Just remember to make ZBiotics your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly, and you'll feel your best tomorrow. Every time I have a pre-alcohol before drinks, I notice a difference the next day. Even after a night out, I can confidently say that you feel good without a worry. Look, I won't lie, I was a bit on the fence about a pre-alcohol initially, but then while hanging out with friends, it felt good, and it gave me a shot, and believe me, it's the real deal. Step 1, drink pre-alcohol for the best results. Make pre-alcohol your first drink of the night. Step 2, drink responsibly. Pace yourself, hydrate, and get good night's sleep. Step 3, enjoy tomorrow. Wake up feeling refreshed and ready to take on the day. Go to zbiotics.com/LockedOnCollege to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use Locked On College at checkout. ZBiotics is backed with a 100% money-back guarantee, so if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember to head to zbiotics.com/LockedOnCollege and use code LockedOnCollege at checkout for 15% off. Have you ever want to go to a game at the last minute like a Maryland Terrapins game, but finding tickets is hard? I've been there before. Buying tickets to your favorite event shouldn't be stressful. Game Time is a fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. With killer deals on last minute tickets and their best price guaranteed, you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for the fun you'll have. Game Time has deals on tickets right at the start of an event and even an hour after it starts. It's a place to find last minute so you can take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. I'm going to predict the rest of the Maryland football schedule. Can we get to 6 wins is the big question, and I'm not sure. So we play Oregon this week in Eugene. I just talked about it in the first segment and said Terps have no shot at winning that game. I do want to say this. Playing the number one team in the country is something to take pride in. It is something to get excited about. And if you make the game close, a lot of people will tune in. A lot of people start watching, and you never know what can happen. But can Maryland beat Oregon? No, I just don't see it. We just have too many weaknesses, and I think this is probably the easiest prediction on the schedule is us losing to Oregon. I don't see a way we beat them. I don't see a way we really stay in the game, but who knows what can happen. I said there's some fluke stuff, but I think that we have 4 games left, and that would put us at 0-1 for that final stretch. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. We play Rutgers November 16th at home. I think we beat them. Rutgers has not been special this year. I think a lot of people thought they'd be good. They were ranked ahead of us on the preseason Big Ten poll and whatever, and I said, that's baloney. I said, that should not happen. But they haven't been good, to be honest. They lost to USC. They lost to UCLA, who's supposed to be having a really down year. They lost to Nebraska, smacked by Wisconsin. They beat Washington. They lost to VTech. Like, they haven't been good this year. I think that we have a really good chance at beating Rutgers. I think we will beat them. I think we're a better football team than them, and they just haven't been good. They've played one good Big Ten game against Washington at home, but other than that, they've been pretty disappointing this year. I think a lot of people thought they had a new quarterback, they had some things, people coming back, and people thought Rutgers football could get back on track. But they just haven't been that good. And I wasn't really a believer in it, but that's what a lot of people told me, so I kind of went with it. But they haven't been that good, and I feel good about the Terps beating Rutgers overall. So I think that's a 1-1 dead in the season. The key is you have to get to 2 wins, and this one's going to be really important. Iowa. I don't see us winning the game. I just don't. I don't think we've been good enough. I don't think I have enough evidence to say we beat Iowa. Iowa has played well, really well. They just smacked Wisconsin last Saturday, 42-10. Like, I've been keeping tabs on it because I know we have to play them. They just smacked them. They have a lot of momentum. Their offense is scoring more points than they've a lot more than they scored last year. They smacked Northwestern as well. Lost a bad game in Michigan State, but they beat Washington 40. They smacked Washington too. They've been putting up 40s. And that's what scares me. Their defense is always solid. And the fact that they're putting up 40 points now is something definitely that I'm definitely concerned about. They have a really good running back in Caleb Johnson that's been going off. They haven't even had to throw the ball very much. But I think that Iowa team is really solid. I don't see us beating them. And then Penn State last game just took a bad loss to Ohio State. I don't know if anyone else was watching this game, but I knew they weren't going to beat Ohio State. They never win a game like that. If you were a Penn State fan and you thought they were going to beat Ohio State, they never win games like that. But I think that I doubt that. I don't think Maryland can hang with Penn State, especially because Penn State's going to need that win last game of the season to ensure that they can be a playoff team and be in that conversation. They can't lose to us, and it's at Happy Valley. I just don't see the Terps winning that game. So that doesn't get us to a bowl game, which is honestly really disappointing because even with a down year, I feel like there were still wins to be had this year where we could have pushed through a bowl game early on the season. Michigan State, you had Northwestern off a bye on a Friday night, a short week for them, couldn't get it done. there was a lot of opportunities to win games this year that we just didn't win. And so I feel like if we don't make a bowl game, that's on us, because we could have still made a bowl game, and I still would have said this year was a little bit of a. Now, that's all we have for today. Thank you for listening to Locked On Terps. Make sure you like and subscribe. We're here every day talking Maryland football and basketball. So thank you for listening to Locked On Terps.